welcome to the Dad Hammer Podcast, a casual Warhammer show where we discuss all things 40k, Age of Sigmar, and literally everything else Warhammer related. So whether you are a beginner or a seasoned veteran, we are so glad that you have joined us on your Warhammer journey. I am David, the Warboss, your humble host, and I am joined by my friend Medicae Steve. Steve, how are we doing tonight?
That's good, man. Good to be back. I feel like I'm doing every other one now. Yeah, so
Yeah,
it's
you're coming off
always
the
something
bench.
coming up. Yeah, I know.
You're the sixth man.
Bring in the lefty. No, it's good, brother. Yeah, just hanging out and doing what we do.
Yeah, doing a little warhammering. Have you
hmm
played much?
I played this last weekend. Played some Warcry. This
Nice.
last weekend.
That's cool.
So that's really been about it, though.
Yeah,
um,
I've been able to play. I played some multiplayer with a couple of friends of the show, Lawson and Bill. We did some,
mhm.
three player combat patrol for 40k,
Yeah.
and that was really really fun. So if for any listening or watching, if you haven't tried the multiplayer rules, issue 498, I believe 498 of
Sounds
White
right.
Dwarf.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely go look. It's got a picture of Vashtor on the front of the cover, so definitely go check that out. It is worth the few bucks that you pay for that issue because it's got the multiplayer rules in there. Super fun combat patrol. Man, it was a blast because they changed the rules up quite a bit. They
Really?
make it so that normally when you play a 1v1 combat patrol game, it is just like a normal 40k game where okay, I'm going to move and shoot and fight and all that. They've changed some of the rules around, so for three players, when I charge in and go into the fight phase, you are not allowed to fight me back. So there
Oh,
is no fight back. So I charge in and I fight, and that's it. Then we go to the
that's
next
it?
player's turn. Yeah.
Huh.
So there is no fights first or anything like that.
Mhm.
That's just part of the rules. They also you get different command points. You get them at the beginning of the round instead of at the every single command phase. There's no secondaries, so you don't play
Okay.
secondaries and multiplayer. You also have some special rules around shooting, where if I'm shooting into, like, if you were in melee combat with another player, right? We're playing three players,
Mhm.
and you can also play 2v2. You could play four players, free for all, or 2v2, like team battles. I haven't played that yet, but if I were to try to shoot into a unit where you are in melee combat with another person, I can do that. I just take a -1 to hit and wound rolls. So
Okay.
little things like that, and then they have all these really cool missions that are a bit of a departure from the normal 40k missions, which are pretty boring in my opinion.
Uh-huh.
The multiplayer missions are they add some spice to them. I played one where you get to resurrect units every single round,
Oh my
and you get
gosh.
victory points for it. The one that we played, and I'm trying to remember exactly. Honestly, I'm now drawing a blank, of course, but there's like six different missions and included in the magazine. So there's a little bit of a plug for the multiplayer rules, but
Yeah.
it's kind of buried in a White Dwarf magazine where
Mhm.
this should be a book. I mean, they should
Should
sell
be
it,
in the
in my
core
opinion.
book.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did a four-way Warcry game. So it was me and my buddy Steve and our sons. So we each had a full war band each. We kind of
Hmm.
expanded the board just a little bit. So we had to make up a lot of stuff, but it ended up working out really well because Warcraft's pretty easy to get through and pretty easy to
Yeah.
pick up.
Yeah.
So we did this thing where the victory was, and Steve came up with all this. It was a chalice in the middle of the board, but it was guarded by he actually had a data card for it, but it was some beast of chaos, right? So it had stats and everything else. So to win, you had to get to the artifact or the chalice or whatever,
Hmm.
fight the boar or whatever it was. You had to kill that creature and use an action to pick up the chalice, right? So we added a little extra to that, and like then your whole thing was to basically pick it up and make it off the board. That's how you would win.
Hmm.
So, but each turn that you possess the chalice, you had to roll a dice, and if you rolled, I think if you rolled a 6, you got poisoned, and a 1 through 5, it would heal a certain amount of wounds that your
Oh,
character
cool.
had.
That's cool.
Um, and it was really cool. So we did that, but we added a little spin to it because you have these twist cards and all this stuff in the game, but every turn one it was every man for themselves, right? Turn two on, we each all four of us would roll a dice, and we would pair up according to how close you were in the rolls together. Okay. So like a 1 and a 2 would go together, and
Yeah.
so well, we would do that every turn. So this turn, your ally may not be your ally the next turn. And
Oh, that's cool.
so we kind of revolved this ally thing. Some of that was so we could help our sons a little bit
Yeah.
too, hopefully.
Yeah.
Um, but it really worked out perfect. Every man for himself, turn one, turn two, it ended up me and my son, and then him and his son. And then the next one, it was me and his son. We swapped sons basically. And then we kind of threw a little monkey wrench in it on the next turn. Like it was literally um it's like 2, 4, and 6. I forget how it was, but we were all spread out equidistant as
Hmm.
far as the dice goes. So we're like, all right, now it's back to every man for themselves. So it was
Cool.
a lot of fun. It was a little too hard of a victory circumstance because we added another thing, like if you drop the chalice and pick every time someone new picked it up, you had to fight the creature again. We probably could
Oh,
have left that
geez.
out. Frankly, no one ever made it off the platform with the chalice. We all just brutalized each other.
Yeah. I
But
mean, that's
it was a lot of fun, and it
yeah.
worked. It worked very well.
Well, you
So it
got
was a
good
good time.
intentions. I mean, I've
Yeah,
we've tried to do that before. We make up these
yeah,
crazy scenarios and like this is going to be awesome, and then we play
yeah,
it, and then we find out, oh, you know what? Writing game mechanics is kind of
yeah,
hard
yeah,
because it's easy to break.
yeah.
Um,
Well,
you know,
Warcraft's so easy, and I don't
mhm.
want to say easy, but it's very intuitive.
Yeah.
It's not that hard. It felt like a hard rule set to break,
Hmm.
so that's why it worked. It just nobody really won. We had set a secondary, like, all right, if nobody makes it off the chat at the beginning, like the next thing is whoever slayed the most warlords is the
Hmm.
winner. If no one makes it off the board with the prize, that's how we're going to determine the winner. And that worked out because somebody did. So that was really
Well,
cool.
I mean, I think that's cool. I think you and I both, when we're being more of the casual variety with this, we tend to flock towards these more narrative or
Hmm.
randomized type games because we don't play a lot of tournament stuff. So um, I tend to like when we can add in some custom elements,
Yeah.
narrative type rules, or something that changes the environment or adds weather effects or adds I don't know. We talked about giant fissures that form in the earth, and if
Yeah.
you're on one, you take mortal wounds. And I love that kind of stuff. And
Hmm.
I wish they would do it more in 40K. They do it a ton of Age of Sigmar, Warcry, very heavily
Hmm.
narrative and randomized. I think Kill Team does a pretty good job. They throw in
Yeah, I
some
think
random
so too.
stuff, which is cool. Um, and but I like all of the randomness where you roll dice to see what
Yeah.
happens, and the teaming up thing sounds pretty cool. It's almost like, not to just a natural segue, but it's very similar to what Skaven do in
Okay.
in terms of their mortal enemies, but then very quickly can become friends as long as
Yeah.
they're going after the same enemy, and then turn around and backstab each other. That's
Hmm.
the Skaven lore. I talked about this on last week's show, but I just think that's a cool idea, a cool concept. Did that come from anywhere in particular, or did you just make
No,
it up on the
man.
spot?
Yeah, we kind of he came up with most of it, and then we were trying to figure out a way to, all right, should we team up? Should this be a free for all? And we didn't want to necessarily team up and then the boys feel like we were playing their game
Yeah.
for them. So
Yeah.
we made this little like truly randomized way of doing stuff. But I also wanted the boys to play their game. I didn't want the boys to be like, "I'm just gonna do what dad does," and
Mhm.
you kind of like follow his coattails, and or whatever. And I think it really forced them to think about the game, and but also not feel like they were overmatched or undermatched. Like if it was a free for all, I feel like they would have just felt bad playing two people that have played a lot of games, and at the same time, we wouldn't have played our armies the same way. We would have been helping them out a whole lot, and
Yeah.
it would have just not felt very genuine. It made a very interesting, genuine game that for kids, and they were learning, and it gave them some agency in the game, and they were like, and they had to think about it like, well, do I really want to do that? Because if I have this opportunity to obliterate them now, are they going to roll and be my?
Mhm.
So it made them focus on
Yeah.
the objective. I don't know. It pushed a lot of the things that what you really want to be doing in a game. And Steve and I talked about it, and we both felt like, it's really nice to loosen up and not
Yeah,
worry about
exactly.
every single little rule, and play a game that made it fun for the
Well,
circumstances.
I think that's what, and yeah, I agree that especially for new players or for younger players, having some flexibility
Mm,
and built into the game is really important. And with the multiplayer stuff with that I did, that's very similar type feeling where it just frees you up because you don't feel as bad when there's some kind of random element. Like, well,
yeah,
even if I had the best strategy in the world, this said I took 15 mortal wounds and I can't do anything about it. It's like it
yeah,
takes the pressure off a little bit. You're like, well,
hmm,
it is what it is. So,
that's
well,
good
that's
stuff.
cool. I'm glad that you were able to play a game.
Hmm.
I got one game in, so we're getting there. We don't get to play as much as
Yeah,
we used to, but
I know.
um, yeah, I mean, it's cool times. So I know that this is we went a little bit out of order here, but I think it's
It's
cool that
okay.
we talk through our Warhammer experiences because we
Hmm.
don't, as older dads with families and all of that, we just don't we don't get as much opportunity
I know.
as we used to. But well, anyway, thanks for listening to our little story time here at the beginning. We do have a really good show. We got some good stuff to talk through. We've got Age of Sigmar, fourth edition, still on the I guess ever approaching horizon. It's going to be here before we know it. And there's some new stuff. They've got a new Skaven miniature, the Warlock Engineer. We've got our impressions and thoughts on that. We've also got the White Dwarf 500th issue that is a big jam-packed issue coming up that I'm kind of excited about. It's a magazine
Yeah.
after all, but there's a new miniature that they've shown off. We'll do a little bit of discussion around that. And finally, we've got a little bit of a meaty topic where they have announced the Darktide board game. I think it was called Riptide. I think that's what the name of it. It is a brand new board game as a spin-off of the Darktide video game. It's set in the 40K universe. So we're going to talk about that, but we're also going to discuss some of the maybe just some ideas and questions around why they don't adapt a true to form 40K Age of Sigmar tabletop simulation game. They've done some
Hmm.
spin-offs and there's some really good games out there, but none of them have captured the real essence of the tabletop game like seeming that the Darktide game will. So we'll talk about that towards the end of the show. So again, thank you so much for listening. Please, if also if you're watching on this on YouTube, make sure to give us a subscribe, a thumbs up, a comment, all the things that help us out. Would really, really appreciate it. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, please leave us a review. We'd love to hear from you. Okay, with all that out of the way, before we get into the rest of the show, let's get on to our reoccurring segment, the most important question, which sometimes makes me feel bad depending on my status. How is everyone's pile of potential doing right now? Steve, we'll go with you first. How is your
Yeah.
pile of potential over the last week?
So I finished building and priming a Sisters of Battle Combat Patrol box. So that was quite an accomplishment.
Mm-hmm.
I've moved on to finally, like I said, I was going to do this year, my Necrons. So I'm changing my strategy a little bit this year, right? Like I am on a building, painting, and priming spree. I feel like if I get them built and get everything primed, and I do a lot of priming with my airbrush, so I can do these like zenithal highlights and stuff like that too. Maybe even throw some base colors on there. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like if I get through, I'm like really actually plowing ahead because I did that OC Bone Reaper box. Now I've got
Mm-hmm.
the Sister of Battle box. I
Wow.
should be able to plow through these Necrons fairly well, but they're playable, right? So now I'll have all these things that that are been on my backlog, but I'll have them at a playable state. So I feel like if I get through that and then I get to play them, I feel like I'll be even more motivated to push through and get some
Yeah.
painting done.
No, that's good.
Um, I feel like we're at a point in our hobby age and experience where we can kind of like not have to do the like I'm just gonna do 5 now and see what I want to do. And I'm not saying that's wrong. That's the way I've always been, but I just can't get it done. I get if you put 5 in front of me, I'm gonna paint those 5 until I'm absolutely happy with it. And
Yeah.
that may take forever.
Yeah.
So if I got some pressure like all these things, these poor primed models that need love, I might just push on and push through a little bit
Yeah, I'm
better.
I'm the same way. I feel like it's easier for me to assemble models than it is
Mhm.
to get them all painted. Painted just takes so much longer. So the assembly part, if I can get them on the table, and I've got plenty of models. I've got an entire Tyranid force that I have yet to paint, but
Yeah.
they're just hanging out, right? They're all assembled and primed, so I could play
Mhm.
them. I haven't yet, and I don't really have an excuse. I just haven't. I don't get to play as much as I used to. Um, but I find that if I have them assembled and at least primed, and if I put them on the table, then I'm motivated. I'm like, oh man, this looks
Mhm.
terrible. I really need to get this painted up. So yeah, I agree. It builds in some motivation whenever I assemble a box or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, very good. I unfortunately don't have a lot of progress to report other than I tried. There was an effort made to get my Underworlds Stormcast models painted up, and
Mhm.
I think I mentioned this on the last show. I started them, and I did the gold metallic
Yeah.
spray, and I put that out there. The Retributor armor. I couldn't think of the name. The Retributor armor spray, and I don't know if anyone who's listening to this has ever had problems with metallic spray. It's a very you never know what you're going to get.
Mm.
On one hand, it comes out really smooth and looks great, and then if you tilt it the wrong way, at least on this particular spray, it came out chunky, like it was like a
Mm.
fine sandpaper,
Oh,
which
no.
you can't save it. I mean, after that, it's
Nope.
all sprayed all over the top of the model, and you can't, brush it off. It's just not
Mm.
going to work. And so I had to give them an alcohol bath and strip all the paint off and start over. Um, but luckily, it's only 3 models, right? So this is an
Oh, that's good.
Underworlds
Yeah.
expansion, so it wasn't that bad. It wasn't like
Okay.
but one time, I back in the day, I did this with an orc vehicle,
Mhm.
and it was the
Oh, no.
was it the battle wagon? And I mean,
Mhm.
that's not a huge vehicle, but it's a big model. And I had spray painted that with black, and didn't know at the time that the spray can was bad, and so I had to. That's a lot of alcohol too to dunk
Yeah.
that thing into, and then I had to oh gosh, it was just terrible. It makes me not
I
want to spray models anymore.
that's kinda why I've been doing a lot more with my,
The airbrush.
airbrush. It's
Yeah.
yeah, because it's pretty easy, and it's water-based, so it'll strip off easier if
Mhm.
you need it to.
Mhm.
But man, I've got a couple of vehicles. I haven't tried to strip the paint off a vehicle yet, and I got one I need to. I would
Yeah.
really like to.
Well,
Um, uh,
so yeah, so I mean, not a lot of progress on my end, but hopefully, I'm going to try to get back into the Stormcast side. I've also got to make progress with my Spearhead box of Stormcast because
mhm,
I mean, the new version of AOS is coming out, and I'm going to get that
mhm,
launch box with Skaven and Stormcast in it because I play both armies. So
exactly.
um, I got to make some progress. I got to knuckle down and just get it done. So
Right.
well, cool. Hopefully, we'll make some more progress on our piles of potential. For those that are listening or watching, please make sure if you've made progress on your own pile of potential, send us take a picture, tag us on social media, Instagram at Dadhammer Studios, and just show us what you're up to. Okay, let's now move off to some news. We've got some pretty cool stuff that's been announced. They're starting to trickle in, I would say. It's not as, awesome as a big event where they reveal a ton of models, but still showing some new content. I'll throw this up on the screen. The Warlock Engineer for the Skaven has been shown. As a Skaven player, I'm really excited for new models because they just. I remember when I first started really getting into the Skaven, they had a ton of resin-based models, and
Mhm.
just some of them look really, really derpy. They just look so
It's
bad.
not good.
No, not good, but that's okay. They had plenty of plastic ones that looked good at the time. So I'm glad they are coming back and doing some refreshes. This is the Warlock Engineer. I this is not doing for me. It isn't really.
Really?
It doesn't make it look like he's menacing. I mean, supposedly he's
Mhm.
holding a musket, but to me, it just reminds me of like a sea captain. Like he's got a telescope. This is a rat sea captain. He just needs an eye patch and it'd be good to go. I I don't know, and he's kind of up on a piece of I don't know what is that, some kind of armor or something. He's standing up
Tactical
on one
scrap.
leg, yeah, like a Captain Morgan pose with
There you go.
looking out into the sea. It yeah, I mean it's fine. It's not bad. It's just
Mhm.
fine to me.
Yeah.
The one thing I did like about it is that they have some of the stats here where he's got a warp
Mhm.
lock musket, and there's some cool abilities with that. But I wanted to point out the sniper master ability that the Warlock Engineer has. So you pick a visible enemy hero to be the target. And then
Mhm.
for the rest of the turn, this unit and friendly Warplock Jezzail's units, and those are the sniper guys. And I'm going to put these up on the screen because these are the current units. This is what I'm talking about. These guys look like they came out of the. I would say
Oh, they're
they're 80s.
they're not
80s,
yeah,
maybe
they're not
90s.
good. Uh-huh.
And
I'd
just
look
not and they're
at the
resin
faces,
too.
the snout and the eyes. Hmm. Have you ever
Yeah.
messed with those resin models? I've never messed
Yeah.
with,
I
GW's resin models.
no, I personally haven't, but I've messed with I mentioned this on the last show. I messed with the lead base, the metal
Yeah.
miniatures. I had some orc models, and that was just a terrible experience. So I I don't think that these are going to be. Hopefully, these are going to be replaced.
Yeah.
And when they're referencing the rules for the Warlock Engineer, that doesn't necessarily guarantee that they're being
Mhm.
replaced. But when you look at these things, I just oh boy, I really hope because supposedly I've never played them. Supposedly they're good. They're good on the
They
tabletop,
look like they should be. I mean,
right?
I could see that
Snipers.
being a very good yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, I think so. Anyway, I know Steve, you're not a Skaven player, but what do you think of this model? Are you as sea captainy as do you see sea captain here, or do you see something more imposing?
I no, I was thinking of the, uh, the tenacious little squirrel from the Ice Age movies that was constantly trying to catch that acorn. I don't know if it's just that one little tooth, but it looks like what's his name? Scrat. That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Which it fits. I will say it looks good for what it's supposed to be.
Sure.
I like seeing the creativity that they're coming out with.
Hmm.
It's got to be tough. I mean, because they have made a lot of sculpts over the years of these games. So coming out with fresh stuff that fits the army, but doesn't go way off the rails from what's tradition and what the fans like, and still trying to make it fresh. I mean, I
Hmm.
wouldn't want that job, but
Right.
it's got a little goofiness to it, but
A
I
little
guess
bit.
that's kind of Skaven,
I
that's
think.
okay.
I think
He's not
what.
very menacing though.
No, not at all. I think that's what's a little disappointing to me is because in the trailers, they're
Hmm.
always showing one of the rats like just going out of their minds. They're
Hmm.
really they're screaming at whatever opponent that's in front of them. They're running around like crazy. This guy doesn't look like he's getting ready to run anywhere. He looks like he
No.
just had, big bowl of mashed potatoes and he doesn't feel like moving. So he's just pointing to where everyone else should go,
That's right.
uh, and he looks like he's a little tired.
Or
He's just
or
chilling, looking out
inebriated.
on the yeah. Maybe you never know. I He just doesn't look like he's in a big hurry, and
Mm-mm.
again,
But
not a huge problem per se if he's a healer. If he's out there
mhm.
healing, then maybe then. But a warlock engineer, just to me, with a warp lock musket
Yeah.
and a sniper master, I just feel like he's way too casual for my taste
Yeah.
anyway.
I think it is kind of weird in the sense that I don't see engineer and basically the sniper master thing they don't feel like those things go together to me.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
Uh I feel like he should be fixing equipment. If you're calling him an engineer. Does that make sense? He either needs to
yeah.
be fixing stuff or blowing stuff up. It just depends on
Yeah.
what kind of engineer you're looking at. I
Well,
don't I don't
yeah.
associate that name with a sniper squad.
No, but I do like the names of the
Mhm.
more warp energy, the yes
Yeah, that's
more.
yeah.
For anyone that doesn't know Skaven, they're always doing the more yes, boom boom, something like they add the two words. And when you read the lore, you kind of have this I don't know the way to say it in the back of your head. These little skittering
Mhm.
rats walking around saying yes all the time, and
Yeah.
I think that's funny and cool. So, I mean, new models, new
Mhm.
plastic sculpts. It's not a resin model, so that's a win. I'm not unhappy about it, I guess, but I'm not
Sure.
overly thrilled. Um, but so far, what they've shown, the clan rats looked really good from last week. That has me excited. I want to see a big character,
Mhm.
but they've already got some good looking models that are plastic sculpts. They've got the Hell Pit Abomination thing, which just they
Mhm.
look great. So a lot of the Skaven sculpts look really, really good for what they are. They look very monstrous and gross in all the best ways.
Yeah.
So I would like to see that they replace some of the um, resin models they have. I know that the rat swarms and the rat ogres are both resin, and they look just as derpy as the Jezzails.
Yeah.
Um, Very old school faces and sneering looks. Just they're not as modern, and I'm sure they
Okay.
were great at the time, but they just don't look good. So I'm hoping
Yeah.
that they get a re-release or some resculpts. Um, that said, even with when I'm looking at 40K orcs, um, when they've released some pictures of those, especially with the new codex, doesn't look like we're getting a lot of new sculpts for orcs, and so
Yeah.
but orcs looked okay. They didn't really need any like massive rehaul, but overhaul. Sorry, but the re overhaul. Yeah, I'll get there. We'll
Reboot a
just make
hall.
up words. Yeah, we can make up words. It's fine.
Oh yeah.
But the Skaven definitely needed some love, and
Yeah.
I'm hoping that each week they show off a new model. They're doing that a little bit both with Stormcast and Skaven each week. So I think Stormcast are in a good place. I think they
Oh
need
yeah.
they need fewer releases, but if they're going to treat them just like they do 40K Space Marines,
Mhm.
then this is just the tip of the, iceberg. For
Yeah.
that. So we'll
I
see.
agree.
Cool stuff with Age of Sigmar. Let's now quickly pivot over to the upcoming 500th issue of White Dwarf. So we've got
Hmm.
a picture of, and I want to make sure I say his name right. Grombrindle.
That
Grombrindle.
that's how I
Is that
would
right?
say it.
Okay,
Hmm.
that's what I'm gonna say. Um, but cool cover here. It looks very legacy, 500th old school. I like the cover
Hmm.
on the front, and it says the 192 page mega milestone issue. So my
I'm good with
guess,
that.
yeah, my guess, Steve, I'm interested to just have some predictions here on what you think is going to be in this issue. It looks pretty thick. I'm looking at the
Hmm.
spine of this picture, and it looks like it's going to be a thick boy, which is
Hmm.
exciting. I am expecting, at least a good 15-20 page spread on all the history of White Dwarf, probably some old school pictures
Yeah.
of back issues, and of course we've done the retro White Dwarf, and that's fun. We're going to probably do another one here pretty soon, but they'll probably show some milestone issues where they changed the covers or did something different, where they introduced the bunker,
Hmm.
recently, big features, or when you went from mail order catalog back in the day of White Dwarf over to the internet,
Yeah.
to be able to do, and when they started actually showing screenshots of the website, which was hilarious. So um, I, I think they do that, and maybe having some. They talked about some custom scenarios for the Grombrindle
Hmm.
miniature. So I don't know. What do you think? What are they going to throw in there? Anything that's going to surprise us?
I don't think we're gonna see a whole lot of like peeks at what's coming with the new AOS. I think
Mm,
that's not probably gonna be in this. I would love to see. I feel like every issue now has, maybe some kill team, maybe some war cry, maybe some 40K, maybe some AOS scenarios, maps,
hmm.
cards, that kind of stuff. I feel like we might see something for everything in this issue. Maybe
Yeah,
every system gets a little something, um, something special. That'd be kind of fun. Um, I think you're going to see a lot of history stuff, a lot of
yeah,
armies on parade kind of thing. It may be
hmm,
like army on parade over the years kind of thing. See how
yeah.
people's paint styles and stuff have changed.
Some of
Um,
those paint styles are crazy, like the
yeah,
old school, very bright and
very bright
colorful.
stuff.
And I'm guessing we'll
Hmm.
see some of the old the hills, the green hills. That was the
Right.
all the rage at the time.
I
Yeah,
don't know much about this character, so I was
I,
reading in there. It's not somebody that's got a little bit of Fire Slayer. It's got a little bit of the Oh, I don't
Santa Claus.
the blimpy guys, the overlords or
Oh,
whatever. Caradon or something like
Caradron
that.
over, yeah, something like that. The
Yeah, something like that.
overlord things, yeah.
So,
So
you
they
don't
got
think
this
it's a
miniature coming out here. They also showed
Mhm,
off the custom miniature that they said was available for a limited time. And I know you and I were, prior to the show, we're talking about this. I was really hopeful that, hey, us loyal subscribers, get a free miniature. It doesn't
mhm.
sound like that's going to be the case, but
No,
that
it'd
would have
just
been a
be
great
one
opportunity.
yeah, one little sprue. How hard just a blister pack stuck to my
Yeah.
magazine. That
Man,
I'd be
they
for
used to
that.
include it in the old
Uh-huh.
issues of White Dwarf. They used to get free
Yeah.
miniatures all the time, and then we covered this on a past episode where we went through one of the back issues of White Dwarf from the 90s, and they would give you a couple of miniatures, and then you
Mhm,
could, if you did your mail order in, you could get two additional ones. I mean, they were just throwing them out left and right. This
mhm.
would be a great, I think, just to as a nice, like, hey, celebration of 500 issues of White Dwarf. But
Yeah.
a cool looking
I
miniature though.
It's
I think it's
fun.
cool. Yeah.
You don't think this might herald in a, AOS dwarf army, do you? You know,
And no,
maybe?
I think
Uh,
Grombrindle. It's hard for me to say his name. Grombrindle is he's been around for forever.
okay.
I mean, he's in
It's like
all of the.
the
He's like
Bugman guy?
yeah, kind of like that. I mean, he's just been around forever. So I don't think they're
Gotcha.
gonna do anything specific with him. Now
Mhm.
they did mention in the article that they're going to put up some like some custom scenarios, missions for him to be able to be played in Warcry and both
Mhm.
Age of Sigmar. But I don't. At least I think it was Age of Sigmar. I don't see this going any further than that. Just some custom
Gotcha.
scenarios. It's almost like the Christmas stuff where
Oh,
they
the
do,
red gobbo and
yeah,
all
where
that
they
stuff.
have
Yeah.
a custom scenario for the Red Gobbo, and they do that with Kill Team, and
Yeah.
this is going to be a similar scenario, I think. But
That's reasonable.
cool miniature. I do wish that they were giving it away, well, of course, for free.
Don't we all?
Right, but if you're maybe give it away to subscribers for
Mhm.
they've got the 12-month subscription. You've already got the
Yeah.
money, or give me a discount or something.
I don't
No.
know. Maybe a
Okay.
voucher. A $10
Yeah,
voucher.
sure, right.
There you go.
Whatever. Give me a little love, but that's okay. I don't
I
plan on picking
know.
this miniature up. I'm sure somebody will, and they're real
Mhm.
excited about it. All right. Well, looking forward to the 500th issue. I think it's definitely going to have some cool stuff. Definitely with the card stock, the thick card stock. It'll have some missions and some cards.
Yeah.
Is my guess. So with that, let's now get on to I guess the meatiest topic of our show, which is the new board game, miniatures game, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to call it a board game,
Yeah.
but game in a single game in a box. The new Darktide game. I said Riptide earlier. I thought it was called Riptide, but I guess it is. Maybe I just made that up, and it clearly says Darktide. I don't know. Riptide's also a restaurant in Florida, like
Ah,
and not a great one. So maybe that's where I got it
okay.
from. I don't know.
Maybe.
But anyway, Darktide the Miniatures Game, not Riptide. I mean, that's, that sounds like such a 90s thing. And it sounds like how old I am. Hey man, you gonna play
Remind me.
Riptide?
Yeah.
Or like an 80s cartoon,
Mhm.
Riptide in the gang.
I just
All
had
right.
a funny thought. It said Darktide the Miniatures Game, and I just popped into Spaceballs, like,
The
the
breakfast cereal.
merchandising. Yep. Spaceballs the lunchbox.
Darktide,
That's
the flamethrower. Yeah. Oh man.
Oh, well, that's enough of that.
Yeah, there we go. So okay, so for those that aren't big gamers, Darktide is I would say fairly popular. It's a
Mhm.
spin-off of the Vermintide game that was originally released, well, the more of the Age of Sigmar flavor. So Darktide is the 40K variant of that, where you pick a character class and you party up with what 3 or 4 other people,
Mhm.
and you go in and you combat first person shooter, PC, Xbox, PlayStation. That you can play that today, and it's a cool game. I like the music's really good. It's got a good
Mhm.
techno grim dark feel, um, but action really good, and it's got its difficulty because you're going up against waves and waves of these like infected beings
Mhm.
from the I guess the Death Guard, pox walkers, and all these
That's
different
right.
things that are coming at you. So you can pick your class. You go out and very much like a hero shooter. If you've played any
Mhm.
of those, I would say like an Overwatch maybe, but this is more against the environment. So
Right.
really cool game. I've enjoyed playing it. Steve, you and I played it together a couple
Oh,
times.
yeah.
It's fun. So this is the miniatures game version. And Steve, I'll start with you. What were your
Yeah.
thoughts when you first saw this announced?
Uh, I was like, "Oh, that's so cool." I do love the game. I really, really like the game. Then I was looking at the pictures of the game, that they put out, and I
Mm-hmm.
thought, "Okay, I
Mm-hmm.
get it." You know what I mean? I haven't really played a lot of these games. The closest thing I have is that, Space Marine adventure game, the
Yeah.
Tomb of the Necrons. You got, like, 5 hero Space Marines.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we messed around with it. I really just bought it for the figures. But the game's okay. You start putting all these cards in. I just don't know if that's for me.
It's a lot of
Uh,
cards.
if I want to spend the time, because I understand it's quick and I understand it's not rule heavy, but do I want to spend the time doing that, or do I want to just keep doing what I'm doing? I do like the game. The miniatures are cool. I don't think they're new miniatures. I think they're like pieces from old sets, that's been released
Yeah.
for some time. I mean, I'd consider it for the miniatures, but I don't know what I'm going to use them for outside of like this game. And I know it's going to happen. If I bought this, it it's not going to get
No,
much
it's just
play.
gonna sit on the shelf, and
Yeah.
that's my thing. I think they try to make as many entry points into the
Hmm.
game and hobby as they can, and in hopes that they'll find somebody that says, "Well, I can't get into 40K, or I can't get into Kill Team, I
Hmm.
can't get into Warcry or Age of Sigmar, but oh wait a minute, this Darktide game, not Riptide, but this Darktide
Not
game."
Riptide.
At least I don't think so. I'm gonna have to verify that because
I didn't
maybe I'm
see
just
it
going
anywhere.
crazy. No, okay. So I 100% just
Yeah,
made it up. Is that is
maybe
that
possible.
because I thought,
I looked.
yeah,
I didn't want to like correct you on it because I was like, well, I'm
you
not
could totally
sure.
correct me.
It might
Yeah,
be.
yeah. No, it's definitely not. I just looked it up, but I the miniatures are fine.
Hmm.
But going back to the game itself, looking at the board, it reminds me of Underworlds, and
Hmm.
this has an audience. This is
Right.
going to be a game for people that like the skirmish style games that don't want to use a tape measure to. This is going to
Hmm.
be a hex grid. Um, One thing I'm not a big fan of in the video game itself is the roguelike type of
Yeah,
element
I
where
got
you're
you.
going up against these big waves of enemies. That's wave after wave after wave, and the objective on a lot of these is just to see if you can survive. Can you make
Hmm.
it to the end? And I'm more of a give me the mission with the overarching storyline, and it's got some light story elements into it,
Hmm.
but it's primarily you teaming up with some friends and going and fighting waves of enemies to see what kind of loot you can get and upgrade your
Right.
weapons. And some people just love that. Some people that's all they want. They just want more a looter shooter. They want to get
Hmm.
more upgraded weapons, and that whole gameplay loop is really satisfying. To me, this this doesn't really do much for me. Number one, there's no terrain. The board's really small. The miniatures look
Right.
okay, um, but I mean, I like the Dark Tide game, but I'm not a super fan of the game.
Hmm.
So maybe if somebody is a big gamer and they're really into the Dark Tide video game, that this is a natural leap for them, and I'm assuming that's why they made it. But
Yeah. And I mean, I think if I were going to play this kind of game, I would look at Underworlds more so than this because it's more established. It's
mhm,
got a little bit more stuff to it. I feel like this is going to get repetitive. How many
yeah.
times can you play this? Because then it's just a dice game with,
Well,
kind of,
I'm I'm assuming they'll have scenarios,
yeah,
lots of different
yeah,
scenarios and maybe ways to upgrade your miniature, right? You get
right.
new weapons and I it reminds me I played Gloomhaven for a little bit, just for a few
Okay.
games, and that's one of the most insanely popular board games. It's really expensive. It has it's a huge heavy box, tons of stuff in it. I did not care for it, and mainly
Mm.
because you could you could lose. You could play, you could spend all these, all this time learning the rules and you'd play and you could lose and you'd fail the mission and it's like, well, I guess we
Mm.
have to play that mission all over again. And to some people that is really enjoyable. It's the
Yeah,
challenge. I I I left that whole thing back in the 80s when you could
gotcha.
play Pac-Man. The objective was to not beat the game. The
Mm-hmm.
objective was to get the high score and just play and then be done with it.
Mm-hmm.
Or like Gauntlet, the arcade game,
Right.
that was the same thing. There is no end. You just
Mm-hmm.
play and you have fun and you leave. And that's what I grew up on. But now I'm like, no, I want a storyline, and I want an end to the game.
Yeah.
Like, when I get to level 20, that's it. That's game over. Like that's what I want.
Yeah, I don't wanna be a, like, a Hogan's Alley kinda just barely guided participant, I
Hogan's
wanna
Hogan's Alley,
it's
man.
like, it didn't
Yeah.
matter what you did, you're going the same way,
Hmm.
you're just following a preset, predetermined course, and I
Yeah.
feel like some of these it's slightly predetermined because there's only so many, permutations of what's gonna happen, you
But
know?
these games are the roguelike games are very popular. I mean,
Oh,
there's
yeah.
just they're a dime a dozen nowadays, and
Mhm,
that's personally not for me.
mhm,
And I don't know if Darktide will be that on the tabletop. I would assume it's going to be very similar to the board game, and
mhm,
to big fans of the video game rather. For big fans of the video game, this is maybe right up their alley, and maybe this is the entry point. Because I was
right,
looking at the article, and it made mention towards the end of for people that want to maybe get into Kill Team as well. This is a great entry point into that. So I could see that, but then I'm asking, why don't you just play Kill Team?
yeah,
Why do you want to do this? But different strokes for different folks. So,
that's right.
uh,
You're
if this is
absolutely correct.
something that is up your alley, drop us a line at contact@dadhammerstudios.com, or give us a shout out on Instagram. Would love to know your thoughts on what you think of this new Dark Tide or Riptide, depending
It
on
it's
whether or
tell
not you
us why
want to
they
call it
should
that.
rename it Riptide, because that would be very interesting.
You want to sell less, product, just call it Riptide. Be
There
fine with
was
that.
an '80s show called Riptide, wasn't it? It's the one with the 2 dudes that had the weird funky helicopter and the, like,
That
trash can
sounds like
robot.
every '80s show.
I'm pretty sure it was. Anyway, not important to the discussion, but it just hit me.
No, I just looked it up. No, I think you're right. Riptide, the TV show, 1984, 1986, and
Oh,
then they
that's
tried to
awesome.
reboot it in 2022. Wow, okay.
That was probably a
So,
mistake.
the good news, I'm not absolutely insane for thinking it was
True,
Riptide.
true.
Bad news is it's definitely not called Riptide.
Yeah. Well, that's
Darkside.
okay. We just got, like, a corrupted memory file.
Mhm. Very much so. Well, let's keep the conversation going with
Yes.
some of these tabletop games. One thing I wanted to discuss here towards the end of the show was we've talked about this a little bit in the past.
Mhm.
I love the tabletop 40K Age of Sigmar games. Love playing them, so great. And there is currently not a one-to-one. So it looks like this Dark Tide video game to tabletop adaptation is going to be
Mhm.
one-to-one. If you love the video game, boy, are you going to love the Dark Tide
That's right.
miniatures game. I I don't think, and then I haven't seen one, and there's some other games in the past that are similar, but I haven't seen one in a modern iteration that is 40K Age of Sigmar. If you like the tabletop game, then you should play the video game.
Right.
I other than like Battle Sector, I played that.
Mhm.
That's a fun game,
It
but
is a fun game.
it's not the same. Like,
Mhm.
okay, let's pick armies, and let's create our forces, and now we're going to deploy on these randomized maps, and now we're going to roll the dice and play the cards. I want a direct one-to-one simulation. And Steve, I know you and I both talked about this. Why do you think they haven't done that yet? Why not create that?
I don't know. I don't know if they're locked into their own product so much. It's
Mm,
obvious that they have excellent, excellent video game people working
yeah,
with them. You
yep,
have Dark Tide, you have Battle Sector. Realms of Ruin is a good game. I bought it on sale. It's
mhm.
not a bad game. I've been enjoying what little I played of it. Some of the older games like Mechanicus, great game. But they're all and the Total War series, the Warhammer 3,
Yeah, or, Dawn of War. I mean,
Dawn
that's
of War.
the 40K. All those are good, right?
They're all good. So there's no way they don't have the avenues and ability to do it, right? So now let's throw in Tabletop Simulator. Very cool. You can
Mhm.
buy it. Everything is community modded. So, but the mechanics of it, are great for what it is. It is really difficult to use, though.
Yeah.
I mean, how many tutorials did you and I both watch
I've
while we
seen
were playing with it? Like,
yeah.
trying to figure out, like, "Oh my god, I forgot how to, like, what do I do to make the ruler
And
pop
then
up?
your
I
and then
don't."
your miniatures, when you would select them, you'd select the wrong ones, and now you're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, crap." And then when you ask somebody about, "Oh, just go download all of these mods and these
Mhm.
packs," and like, listen, I mean, I get it. I
Mhm.
used to be in the mod scene, and maybe we're just old guys, and that's why we don't have the patience for it anymore. It's not for lack of effort or knowledge,
Right.
and I got fully into it, and I read all the rules and all the tutorials, and I watched the videos, and I downloaded the mods, and it all works, quote
Yeah,
unquote works, but it's kind of janky. It's just a pain in the butt to play, in my
it
opinion.
really is. But, I mean, the those games, Battle Sector's the closest thing I can think of, like you
Yeah,
said.
very polished. That was good.
But but at the end of it all, they kinda start feeling like all of these app-based games, like Age of Empires and all, because then you inevitably, they throw in some sort of base building aspect of it, or,
Yeah,
there's some sort of weird thing that you gotta do that's not what you would do on the tabletop.
right.
We're not making forts, and we're not managing resources like,
Well, it's more like a real
money
time
and
strategy game at that point, an
right.
RTS game. That's what it's
Which
turned
those are
into.
very popular. I mean,
Sure.
I get the appeal, but there's no way that this is their property. So it's not like, and I know Tabletop Simulator is not really stealing anything. These are community mods and nobody's really getting paid for them. But they do have, like, completely online tournaments that are on Tabletop Simulator.
Yeah.
So why not just skip past the entry point of, like, you're going to spend 30 or 40 hours just learning how to use Tabletop Simulator, much less play 40K,
Yeah.
why not just instill all these, all right, you got the rules. My army, I'm picking Astra Militarum. Well, guess what? Those rules are baked in. You can do this and this and this and this, and you can pop up little cards. You can do data
Mhm.
cards. You can pop up rule pages if you want to. Um, you can even put rulers down if you want to. Do you
Yeah.
want them? And I don't know. You have two versions. I want them to look like the miniatures, or I want it to be like the Star Wars game where the holographic little chess pieces come to life and beat each other. You don't want the
Mhm.
animation. I really they have all the ability to do that. Why don't they? I
I
mean,
mean,
what do you
it it
think?
would it would also be really cool if they, the code that you get in the codex for your army, they could
Mhm.
even I hesitate to do this, but they could paywall this to death. I mean, they
Why
could
not?
make it, they've got the 40K card game that
Mhm.
is relatively popular, on Steam, and I played that for a little while. It was on mobile too. So you could sell packs. You could do, like, okay, if you have the codex code that
Mhm.
unlocks the on the app, but also unlocks the army within their 40K variant or something. Or they could sell it separately. I don't know. I mean, why not just have a way to play the game digitally?
Yeah.
And for people like us, and maybe like, oh man, I love Warhammer, I love the miniatures, because it's not going to cannibalize their sales of the miniatures, because it's just a different
No.
way to do it. Just like the Darktide Miniatures game is not going to
Mhm.
cannibalize the Darktide video game.
No.
That they're going to complement each other. And so if I can't play against someone that lives in a different state or a different
Right.
country, for example, today it's just never going to happen. Well,
Right.
hopefully we'll see each other at a LVO or something
Mhm.
coming up, or maybe one day we'll meet up in the next 10 years. But if there was a real digital version, and I'm not talking about tabletop simulator,
Mhm.
is good enough, I guess, if you're desperate. You know, if you're desperate to play, there's no other option. This is what you get. But I
Yeah.
wish there was a fully fledged version, $60 game, and then comes with Space Marines, a handful of armies, and then
Mhm.
if you want more. or if you want something outside of the core rules experience, and you want, they could just blow this out of the water and sell
Oh,
all kinds of content.
yeah, all kinds of bundles and DLCs and everything like that.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
but think about you and I. We live in the same neighborhood, man. And I mean, so we can't always get together for 3, 4 hours to play a
right.
fledged game. But what if we had like, look, hey, the kids we finally got, everybody's in bed. It's 9, 10
Hmm.
o'clock at night. You want to knock out an hour, see if we can get through a turn or something like that, and we'll pick it up the next time. Because
Yeah,
you don't have to put everything away. You don't have to clean off the dining room table. You don't have to do all that stuff. It's going to be there when you come back to it. It's not going to make me buy less
no,
models to paint.
I
I
mean, I
assure you of that.
tried the tabletop simulator
Mhm,
version of this, because you can save your progress,
mhm.
and you can pick it up where you left off. But because of all the mods that are added, I found that things were, when I came back to the game, they were altered because a mod was updated,
Yeah.
or whoops, I hit the wrong key and I moved
To
the
flip the
models, and
table
I
button.
yeah. And it's like I messed up the game somehow
Mhm.
unintentionally. It's too janky.
Yeah.
There's too many things that I could do to mess this experience up, and the amount of setup that you have to do up front is pretty steep. And then on top of that, you have to keep in mind all the rules for the actual game.
Mhm.
So I think it would be a way for people that, I mean, I have several friends that think that the 40K universe, for example, is really cool. They love all the
Yeah.
lore, and they think the models are amazing, and wow, that game looks super fun, but I don't want to assemble or paint anything. Like
Right.
that's why they don't play. So
Mhm.
doing a full video game adaptation, you would capture all those people that say, "Hey, I love what you're doing. I'm not a I don't do glue and paints." And
Mhm.
you would get those people, and then now you've got a completely separate fan base that,
Yeah.
and then maybe they become pros at the game because they've learned it,
Mhm.
and maybe they do purchase miniatures one day. I don't know. To me, it just seems like, I think the saving the progress too is something that, unless I was playing with my son for a little while, and we would play a turn, leave it up,
Mhm.
leave the game up, and then come back, in 2 days and finish the game or something. That would be
Yeah.
a cool way to do that digitally.
Yeah, I mean, and the user interface stuff is there. Like we're talking about tabletop simulator. I mean,
Yeah,
you still have to have all your books out for
yeah,
TTS. Well, you take Battle Sector, it it's not analogous to the tabletop. It's
no,
got it's got built-in rules and built-in parameters, but you can't really see what they are. It's
yeah,
like, okay, I'll move until this little arrow turns red, and that's as far as my guy can move.
hmm,
Well, I want to know. All right, my character has a 6-inch movement. I want to see that on the game,
yeah,
but I
yeah,
don't want to do like tabletop simulator. If I set my little model down wrong on TTS, it falls over or it just glitches and it looks weird.
yeah, yeah,
I think you can smooth all those things together. I think you can get the complicated aspects of the tabletop game with the nice, smooth animation and interface that stuff like Battle Sector and all that has. I just really feel like they're missing an opportunity to
yeah.
do something that's
I
not there
mean,
right now.
it's easy for us to say this, right? It's
Yeah, so because
there's a
I don't
lot
do
of
that for a living.
there's a lot of development. There's a lot of money involved.
Mhm.
I get it. I work in technology, and I understand that these things don't just manifest themselves without a whole lot
Mhm.
of work and 4, 5, 6 years of development. And you really got to hope that your fan base is there and it's gonna reward you with this type of product.
Yeah.
I I think that they could even start at a mobile version of this if they
Mhm.
wanted to kinda limp in just to test the waters. I think they could do a mobile variant and have some success, but I I just wish they would do it because I know I would buy it, and it would be
Oh,
cool if
man, yeah.
for the feature of being able to save your progress and pick it up at
Mhm.
a different time. I think that would be worth it for me alone. But you know, all that said, I am happy that they are coming up with, different ways to explore the 40K universe. I think it's cool
Hmm.
that they're coming out with a miniatures tabletop experience for a video game like Darktide. Maybe they'll do something for 40K and Age of Sigmar in the future, maybe not. But, if they
Yeah,
do, we're the first ones to come up with the idea, right? I'm
that's
sure we're
right.
the only ones.
I'm sure they'll give us full credit.
Oh, yeah, tons of credit. Well, hopefully, and we'll see something in the future. But until then, that will actually do it for this episode of the Dad Hammer podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you to Medicae Steve for your time, your attention, and your service, good sir. Until next time, all those listening and watching, remember that your pile of potential boxes can double as terrain.
You
Thank
got
you
that
so
right.
much. Take care, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.